What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about Miek, who will be coming to the game to hopefully give a nice uplift to the discard archetype. Will he be enough to make dependable discard great again? Alex and I are going to break down, is he worth getting? How is the spotlight week that he's in? As well as the best combos and decks and everything you need to know. On top of that, we're going to talk about the OTA review a tad bit with cards on the rise. We've talked about Mobius in the future, Legion way before they were getting good. And if you play them early enough, you definitely have the upper hand. And then lastly, guys, we'll be talking about a stale meta. A little bit of Thanos, a little bit of Evo. We've been seeing a lot of the same decks. Which decks are both competitive and a ton of fun? Alex and I have a bunch of great decks to talk about today. We're going to talk about that all today and more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex Coccia. Hello, Mr. Alex. We have ourselves another great week of Marvel Snap. A new card to talk about, another Snapchat, buddy. How you doing?
Doing great, Cozy. It's been a pretty interesting week in Marvel Snap. There's been a lot going on. The meta hasn't quite shaken up as much as maybe I would have liked, and anybody would have liked, actually. But at the end of the day, it's still a hell of a fun game. And even if the meta gets a little stale, we get to come back to an absolutely phenomenal game that's fun to play.
Yes, well, to be transparent with everybody, we are filming this at the brink of night, really the day before this is going out. It's Sunday night. It's almost Monday, the day of when it's coming out. On your end, I'm running on power generators. All of this is on power generators. I had all of my power go out, but we haven't missed an episode of the Snapchat. And damn it, we're not starting now. Unless this cuts off and it's only like a 30-minute episode, then you know the power is dead.
I want you guys to know that Cozy's not joking.
No.
His power is out in his home. He had to message me and say, hey, we got to delay the start of the Snapchat. I need to go buy a generator so I can run my PC. Like, this is not a joke. This is not a drill. He's serious.
100%, and it is, in fact, a million degrees in here. I have, I don't have central AC. It's San Diego. It's called Open a Window. But we have some fun things to talk about, man. We got the new card, Miek. Discard fans are going to love it. Kind of a stale-ish meta. We'll get to that and how we have, potentially some really fun decks to play. We're going to talk about the OTA impact and a lot of good stuff on this Monday. Alex, how are we feeling, man? What are we talking about on your side of the Snapchat?
We're going to be discussing Hercules. Didn't necessarily impress, but we're giving our final rankings and our general impressions of Hercules as a playable piece of Marvel Snap. We'll also be discussing our favorite cards at every cost, something that is one of my absolute most favorite conversations that Cozy and I have. And finally, our weekly mailbag.
Well, buddy, we have the new card, Miek, and let's just get right to it, man. Let's talk about him. Now, first of all, we've got the spotlight, which is not looking back. It didn't look that bad, but after a little bit of OTA-ness, maybe not as hot as it once was. Annihilus and Phoenix Force join Miek in the spotlights this week. Let's start there. How are we feeling about the spotlight cash if you don't have these cards and put Miek into the equation?
Still think Annihilus is good. Honestly, Annihilus was going from a 5-7 to a 5-5, and then mercifully it got changed to a 5-6, which doesn't sound like a huge deal. Oh, Alex, they still took off one power, and who cares? It's a huge difference. A 5-7 to a 5-5 is a very dramatic change, and a 5-7 to a 5-6 is still a significant change, but not as crazy. So I do still think that Annihilus is still good in the game. You are seeing some win rate dropping, which is kind of interesting. Like, one power off does impact the card most certainly, but I do think Annihilus is a key piece. Cozy, my question to you, though, is do you think that Phoenix Force is worth it?
Yeah, I mean, to touch on your Annihilus piece, the way he won most of the time was like with the Sentry, the Void, the Hood popping over. If you're pulling that off, you're still probably looking pretty good. So I agree with Annihilus there. Definitely, like, Junk had a great month, and then it did die pretty hard in the meta. It's not a meta deck, but he's still, a good value card per se. Just not the best. Definitely got hit pretty hard, hoping he goes up a touch. And Phoenix Force, it's kind of just where it's always been at, right? Since the dawn of this moving not Human Torch, multiple man deck, and I guess Human Torch as well. Now you have Kyera in the mix, which kind of makes the deck a little bit more fun. Hercules has a fun Phoenix Force deck. There are some, it's the new, like, it's not the new negative. I don't think it's like, it goes with that kind of style, but it's just a fun combo deck and one of the best ones if you can pull it off, which makes it competitive. But overall, it's a fun card, not exactly meta.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also worth noting that Phoenix Force did drop to Series 4 recently.
Yep.
So you might, if like you're someone who has an excess of tokens, which is rare, but if you do, if you have an excess of tokens and you value Spotlight Keys more, you might consider using your tokens to pick up the Phoenix Force if you're planning on dodging Miek anyway, if you don't play discard.
Yeah, speaking of Series 4 cards, Miek is the Series 4 card this month, and he is a one cost 1 power. Now, the last one cost we got was Celine, and then before that was Nico, I believe. So we have another one joining Snap here, and his ability after each turn, if you discarded any cards, he's going to get +1 power for each card, and he's going to move 1 time. So he's going to move 1 time, and he's going to gain power for every discard. Kind of like Mobius. It's not ongoing. That's an important thing. Or Morbius. Knew that was going to happen. Kind of like Morbius, but he's not going to have the ongoing side of things, right? And he is a 1-drop, which really Blade is the only one that can fit that 1-drop kind of category for discard. Now let's go ahead and get right to it. We're going to talk the the synergies, where we see him working, and overall the star ratings. Hit me, man. What is the star ratings 1 through 5, Mr. Meek?
I've been leaning towards 3. But there's a key mechanic thing that was kind of explained via Glenn that unfortunately Meek is no longer, or is never intended to work with end of game effects, which would include like a Invisible Woman MODOK play, Dracula. So that's just power that comes off his ceiling, right? Like Dracula would have been a free +1. Obviously MODOK, Hela MODOK, Hela, and Invisible Woman combinations, which aren't all that popular right now, but still a tool that Discard can use, and Discard has confidently used for some time, isn't going to work with Meek. And in hearing that, it kind of gives me a little bit of pause and wants me to lean him back towards a 2-star rating. However, I'll ultimately fall on 3 because I think that Discard could use a relatively decent power source at the 1-drop.
Yeah, this is a difficult card to talk about for a couple reasons. Because I think ultimately, when we have, so next month, guys, we have 2 good discard options coming with that season pass in general. It's some of the new cards. If you plan on getting those, get Meek. I think he's going to be alongside those to make a really good deck, bringing discard back up. Meek by himself, I think, is a good 1-drop. But you have to figure out cards to cut, which can make it difficult. That list is still tight, even though we got rid of Chavez in there. Ultimately, I think he will be a nice piece for discard moving forward. It's not going to be a black and white thing when he comes out, on Tuesday. I don't think he's going to be like, wow, discard all of a sudden is insane. And we'll start there in a second, talking about where it's at the moment and kind of where he'll fit into that. I think it's kind of, dude, isn't it kind of interesting? Again, I'm not, a developer. It just seems like I would have done maybe Grandmaster the first or second week, maybe Billy Ray, whatever, having like a super fun card. Because if you look at it, man, we've had Celine, Scar, Hercules, and now Meek. Not exactly like cards itching people to play, especially like with weaker archetypes. Now, it's important to have these cards come. You know what I mean? Like going after such a long break between the OTAs and the patch, I just feel like maybe the Grandmaster kind of is a crazy card that could have mixed things up a bit more than Meek, which I feel is somewhat predictable on how he's going to end up.
I would understand like why people would want maybe more of a meta shakeup earlier, especially with like Hercules underperforming. The counter argument to that would be, did maybe the development team not think Hercules was bad? Like, did they not think that Hercules was going to underperform? Did they think that it was going to make a splash and move? Then move was going to kind of rise up in the ranks of the meta, and then everyone's playing move, and then Meek comes out, another quasi move card that people are trying to play discard move, and maybe they thought these cards were going to be more impactful than they ultimately were, right? We have the benefit of retrospect 2020, as they say. So maybe, ultimately it just didn't pan out like they wanted to. But I would agree, Grandmaster does look like on paper like it's going to be significantly stronger. So if you want to really shake things up, then maybe Grandmaster earlier on would have been a little stronger.
Well, let's go and talk about the cards and the decks where I think Meek is going to work, guys. And trust me, I think he will be a decent card for a 1-cost drop. Like, he's going to fit right in there. Definitely don't sleep on him as a card. I think he will be good. It just may not be his exact day yet. And we've seen this before. We've seen cards that ended up not really working out and ones that obviously got a lot better as time went on. Meek, because we know discard cards are coming, is going to fit that bill. Now, right now, if you look at just the statistics of 80 rank to Infinite and then play throughout Infinite, and you look at discard as a whole, it's about 54% win rate, 1,500 games since the last patch. Pretty good sample size there. Not that terrible win rate as far as things go, especially after, the post-Chavez apocalypse. But it is your standard list that you've seen a lot of the time, right? APOC, MODOK, Hellcow, Dracula, Lady Sif. You've got the Doc and Gambit splash in there, which I love those 2 options. Wing, Swarm. You have Wolverine, Morbius, and Blade. So right away, obviously, the Gambit, the Doc, and one of those two might go. Heck, even, potentially something like Wolverine, because Meek can move and kind of can do that role that Wolverine serves in a discard deck. That's definitely a high possibility. That is where Meek is going to shine, right? I mean, I think we can have some fun with him moving and maybe have like a Craven deck. Flat out, this is the beginning of the start again to build discard up to the reputation that it wants to hold again as a competitive deck series. 54% is not bad. Wolverine's pretty random. Meek is random, but more predictable, and I think he's going to make that number and win percentage go up overall.
I love what you're saying because I do think that like discard needed something. When the development team goes into the nerf to Chavez, they have to recognize that they're going to be hitting this archetype disproportionately harder than others. And that's exactly what happened. You got rid of reliable discard, and ultimately that was remedied by the buff to Black Knight, right? Black Knight's been the go-to version of discard, and rightfully so. I think the card's been very strong. I think the archetype's been very good. But like that traditional discard just seemed like it's just gone away. And I mean, sometimes maybe you want certain archetypes that are like tried, tested, and true to have like these little timeouts for a little bit where they kind of fade into obscurity, then come back and people are more refreshed on them. You see it with Mr. Negative all the time. Mr. Negative is kind of always bad, but when there's a Mr. Negative deck that all of a sudden actually has some chops to it, everyone wants to play it because it's actually fun, right? So I do like what you're saying here that like with what happened to Chavez, they need a couple spotlight caches, maybe a month or two to actually start adding some additional tools in for discard to have another play pattern once again.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the cards specifically within discard that are going to work best. Obviously, if you just look at him as a 1-drop, he's a 1/1, right? And Glenn's not out there making it a 1 power card unless he expects it to kind of overperform for its cost. We've seen this before in several instances, right? I mean, heck, Nico's a 1/2. But if you think about it, you have, let's say, Calling Wing gets a discard, he's a 1/2. Lady Sif, another one, he's a 1/3. Heck, let's get silly. Black Cat's in the deck. He's a 1/4. Automatically gets rid of itself. And then you have MODOK as the final pop-off. He can get up to like, what, 1/8, 1/9? Don't expect it to get there all the time. But in the way that the shell used to work, where you knew what you were doing on every turn, we're kind of building back to that. And I think you can get Meek to some pretty good numbers. I think there's no reason why he can't be a 1/6, 1/7 dependently. And that's not that hard. I mean, it just kind of works with the deck. He can be played on most turns. That's going to work out too outside of maybe turn 6. I think it kind of works.
I would dare to say that he would have to be out before turn 4. Because like without the MODOK synergy, or to even some degree, your Hell Cow synergy, I do think that he would generally underperform. Because like Meek is a 1/3 or a 1/4, I don't think is what you want. You want that higher ceiling, which is good, and I think that Meek can do that. But he has a very passive ability. Like if you think about what you get from Nico from a 1/2, like it's insane what you can get from Nico from 1/2. Even something like, let's just say a card that's fallen out of grace a little bit, like an Iceman. An Iceman's a 1/2, but it's a very active effect, right? It's something that you see the result. Well, no, actually, you don't even see the result of, but the result is happening there, right? With Meek, like it's passive. Your opponent's not being obstructed. There's no disruption there. So if you get him out on turn 1, then I think that Meek's going to be very powerful. But holding him on to turn 4 and 5, especially when discard has very strict play patterns, like Dracula's hard to play outside of 4 because you don't want to play it on 5, because then what do you do with your MODOK? Like, you know what I mean? It gets a little different. With the new Apocalypse Shell, I mean, you could technically MODOK on 6 still. But you know what I mean, right? Like decks, it's like discard, destroyer like this too, where they get so tight with how they're played that this card really has to make a case for itself to find itself in the best shell. Because if it's not the best shell of discard to play Meek, then people aren't going to play Meek. They're going to play Black Knight, or they're going to play whatever, right?
Yeah, agreed. I think what's cool, though, is even if you just drop it with MODOK, it's 1/6, right? So, like, right off if it's just those two and you have a full hand and you have the swarms ready to go, that's where it's like the value's there as a nice, like, not Hail Mary play, but a little bit, you can just get, like, 15 points out of value plus ticking up the Morbius or whatever you might have in the deck. But I do get what you mean. Like, it does need to play in a certain play pattern. I feel like, though, in general, what I'm most curious about, I think the list that I just mentioned, something like that, a dependable list, is going to be the best. We've seen this before in discard's case, right? Where it's just kind of, what you're hitting, what you're doing. You're trying to get these cards dependently discarded. But where I'm like, all right, I want to see the possibility. Let's see what can happen with the style of decks that we've had before, where you get the Wong, you get the swarms, you get the double MODOK hit. Those had a time in a place where collector discard, you know what I mean? It wasn't the best discard deck. It was always dependable discard. But if you get MODOK to trigger a couple of times, my man, I mean, you're looking at now a huge 1-cost drop by himself. Obviously, that's more of the fun combo. But you know what I mean? I wonder if that works its way in at all.
I'm trying to hold back my smile because I cannot wait to try a Wong-based deck with Miek. But specifically for me, it's going to be like a Wong Mystique Gambit thing. Like, I want to try Gambit and see what I can do, right? Like, if you can use Swarm as kind of like a catch-all for Gambit, or hell, even Apocalypse is a catch-all for Gambit with a Dracula on the board, like the play pattern and the turn lines feel a little awkward with that because like you probably need to play Magic, you probably need to turn 7. But I do think that like you could like do the whole machine gun pew 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 Gambit stuff. And then, you know, you're discarding Apocalypse over and over again. And then Meek's like, yo, what up? But actually, whoa, if you hit Apocalypse over and over again, will Meek still move? No, it's the same card being discarded?
No, well, he only moves once, but he will keep getting points.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, he'll
sorry, he gets the +1 for every individual time that Apocalypse is discarded. Yeah, so I mean, in theory, there could be some Wong action on the table.
Dude, for sure. And Cosmo's not played that much anymore. Heck, even if you don't have MODOK, you got Wong out there. Throw out a Hellcow, or and it doesn't work with Apoc, but it works with Swarm. Throw out even just like a Lady Sif getting a couple. You can get a good amount of procs going, right, for a discard. All I'm saying is it'd be funny to see a 116 Meek move to a location, win you the game, and you fill out the other location that you know you're going to win, and you just have Meek choose the other one. Or you go the Storm route, you close off the location, you have a move over there. I think there are some interesting things that are going to make some more theory crafting, some more cooking with discard, which is good. I think ultimately discard will always be a very dependable kind of path, but I do like the idea that that could be up for grabs. Now, Alex, the other card I really like in general with Meek and or just discard is Calling Wing. You know, I've been going back, and ever since Hercules came out, I've been playing a lot of move, especially with Kingpin, and we'll get to those later. But I've been playing this old school tempo deck where you just got the stats, and you had a good Vulture. You had a Calling Wing with Swarm. This was kind of early days. I don't know if you remember, like earlier days in Snap, where you just got a lot of good value plays. I feel like maybe we could make something work with Meek in there a little bit. But I think Calling, the Doc, and that's where I really see him somewhere I'm going to target.
Colleen's one of those cards that I think is like a staple card in discard, where it's like the overperformer to some degree that probably goes slept on a little bit. Like you see it in High Evolutionary with Cyclops, that is like the general very high performer, but that's no one's sleeping on that. Everyone sees that. I think that Calling Wing silently makes so many high tempo plays that it just goes underappreciated because it's 2 costs. It doesn't really negatively impact your opponent, so it's not annoying like Leech would be or something like that. So like people don't really pay much attention to how much actual value that Calling Wing's generating. That you bring up Morbius on the screen, Calling Wing into Wolverine Morbius. Morbius on the board, you play Calling Wing, you hit the Wolverine. That's an insane amount of power on a like pretty low investment for cards you probably have in your deck anyways if you're playing discard.
Yeah, and then now you have, Meek and Morbius both gaining this power dependently, and then you've got the value plays of just, like, good statted cards, right? Don't forget, Hellcow went up to an 8-power card, and then you already have, you know, Swordmaster Dawkin, who does 2 things, right? He gives you another card to discard. People always forget that, plus doubles his power. There's a lot now to cook with. There's a lot to cook. So I know it's easy to write off Meek, potentially, but I think with him being Series 4, you have the other cards already. You plan on getting, you know, Clorvis, whatever, the 2 February cards. Then Meek might have a place. And at the very least, you don't want to go into February, get those cards and feel like you want Meek. So here's the deal. For the large majority of people, he's kind of like Hercules. You could probably pass on him. If you don't have any desire to play discard, if you don't want to be left by, you don't have to worry about Meek. But I do think he offers a potential ton of fun, especially about a month out.
One thing I'm going to say is I was trying to think about like, okay, Meek, his movement, very unpredictable, could scam you, right? You have him where you need, and you're like, I got to discard something. He's going to move, damn it, right? And, you know, that stuff can happen. Tell me if this is hopium, but I was thinking about like, if you're playing a swarm-based deck, right? And you're kind of like, you know, you call Wing, you're generating all these swarms. Sometimes you have like 3 or 4 swarms in your hand. You could theoretically play your swarms to block out locations that Meek can't then access, right?
100%.
That's one notable thing. And here's like straight copium. This is like, I'm huffing it hard here. Imagine playing a discard move deck where you have Hercules that would bounce Meek out of the location that you don't want him to go into.
Dude, so It's so fun that we're getting now Hercules and Miek that are these like hybrid move cards almost, where you could build these like crazy decks. And you know, this kind of just takes us to our next subject. Did you have anything else to add on Miek?
No, I wanted to hit you with the Hercules curveball. That's all.
I like it, man. I've been playing actually a ton of Herc. The Hercules in review, final ranking on your side. Totally pumped to talk about because he's brought a lot of fun, right? And that's going to be one of our later subjects here. But yeah, to wrap it up on Miek, I think if you don't have a Nihilus, he's not the worst card to pull for. I would probably say save up. We still have good cards to go. I think we're going to have, you know, Grandmaster's probably going to be a must pull. And then, you know, we have some other great cards coming. So that would be probably my general advice. But I do think he's going to be a good card for discard. Nice to have now, way better later. That's kind of like my final take on him.
Yeah, and one thing worth noting, and it's a good time to kind of bring this up because I think this is something like both of us say in like a lot of our videos when we talk about the new cards. It's also best to like not get hyped up in the FOMO the first day or two and like wait and be like, okay, I'll spend my tokens or I'll spend my spot like he's on Saturday. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with the meta. There's no OTAs on Thursdays on occasions. Things change pretty rapidly in Marvel Snap. So you really don't benefit from just throwing all your resources on day one too. So Miek might want to be one of those ones you want to hold out on.
With that though, let's go ahead and talk about our cards on the rise and the OTA. Now, me and you, we already kind of broke down the leaked patch that happened. Most of it came true. A couple stats changed. So we're not going to cover the entire patch, but I do want to talk about what was impacted, what were the biggest changes from the OTA, and or cards that are zooming up, cards that are on the rise. Now, I'm going to talk about the deck specifically, but I got to open up with my personal favorite, who I did not expect to be as fun as he was. In fact, I kind of thought he was going to just be kind of more of a flavor fun card. Alex, dude, have you messed around with Kingpin?
I have. I actually been trying to do a lot of experimentation with Kingpin. I really like the change.
Good.
I really like the card. It's good. It's fun. I like it.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, like at best levels of play, he still has like a 55% win rate. It's killer. He has flex spots. I just did a whole deck and really played with him in a ridiculous amount. It actually brought a lot of fun to me because you're playing all the fun cards that we love, right? Like Polaris, Spider-Man. And I don't know about you, but I love having Kraven or Kingpin. And you just kind of like pick what you want. You do the negative power. It's awesome. It's the perfect synergy and something fresh and different that I'll talk about that on the stale deck. But I mean, talk about the OTA that I thought was cool and neat, and I didn't expect to have such a radical meta impact.
No, honestly, it's been phenomenal. I think it's one of their better changes in the last little while. One thing I will say, though, and this is kind of a bit of a side, but I always get jealous when you name your decks better than me. Like, you came up with Mobster Move. I was like, damn it, that's so much better than Gangster Surf, man.
Oh,
like, why did
okay.
you do that first? I went with Gangster Surf, and you went with Mobster Move, and I was like, damn it, Cozy, you got me again.
Oh,
Your
dude.
damn fancy pants deck names. But no, honestly, I think that he's good, and I think that he's only gonna get better once we get some additional tools. I think that, like, the first week or so, we were trying some really outlandish stuff. It's always like that. We get this new fun little toy.
Yeah.
We try to find the most broken way to play him. Then ultimately it comes down to reliability. How can we make Kingpin a very useful addition into any particular deck? And like, I don't know. He's also brought up some other cards. We've talked about this before. A change to one card can actually be a net positive change for other cards too. And we're seeing that because like Polaris is a huge winner from the change to Kingpin, I felt, right? Like not only a 3/5 power, Arrow. Oh, look, talking about Arrow, Cozy. Here's your moment.
No. Later. I got it coming up. Don't worry, I got it coming up. Definitely, you'll hear some Arrow talk, guys. So yeah, Kingpin. In short, we'll talk about it more later. Big winner. Annihilus, we kind of already summed him up a bit. Loki, you know, he does kind of go right back into a Devil Dino deck, but definitely, I know it's weird without Collector mattering in him. I definitely think it's slowed it down a good amount, yeah.
It has, and actually in playing, I was like, you know what? This might be a hot take, but I kind of wish they gave him the 6 power. Like, they took enough off him with the Collector nerf, and yes, now he's playing primarily in a Devil Dinosaur shell, which is good. I mean, listen, if you're going to slot Loki as an archetype for, you know what? Pool 1-2 players that unlock this card early with tokens. You want to play with your Devil Dinosaur, your Agent 13s, and your whatevers. Then there you go. Here it is, right? And that's totally fine if that's what you want to make. If you want to give people a card that at relatively early collection levels gives them a chance to compete with the whales of the game that have everything, that are playing the most meta stuff, then that is absolutely fine. I think that the extra power would have been okay from the leak. They ended up retracting that slightly based on the final result. But I think that Loki, he probably had to get nerfed because of the competitive elements that he impacted. But on aggregate, he really wasn't winning all that much.
Yeah, right now, man, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Thanos and his gang of bad guys, I should say, big bads, too, if we're talking about Blob, are kind of, the more we keep going into it, I keep thinking, man, I love Thanos. They might have to figure him out, though. Like, as the months go on, we're looking at cards that are possibly coming out. I'm a little worried about one of my favorite, not only cards, but just characters in Marvel, but we'll have to see. Miss Marvel, I could say that I played a lot of games, and there are games where I felt like that, wow, they didn't get that other card in there. I lucked out. I got it. Easy. But I feel like a lot of these decks are fine putting 2 cards in there, right? But she also went down to a 4/4.
Yeah, a lot of changes in Miss Marvel. Now, when I was doing a lot of my own deck brewing, I actually had to give some thought. Like before, it was like so easy to add Miss Marvel. I'm like, hey, my deck's trying to do this thing, and I just need some power. I need some stats on the board, so I'll just throw the 415 in there. I was just throwing Miss Marvel into decks just because I wanted 415 stats, and that's how you could win. Even the Sarah shells, right? A lot of the Sarah tech shells that were kind of being played were basically extremely tech heavy shells that required Miss Marvel's 15 power to actually close out games, right? But I find myself actually looking at the first of all, the 4/4 stat line, and of course the additional adjacency requirements, and thinking, is it actually worth it? Do I want to run the risk of playing Miss Marvel? Because now when I'm deck crafting with Miss Marvel, I feel like I have to play Miss Marvel and I have to play Doctor Doom. They have to be played together because you need that kind of all right, I need to put something somewhere, right? Doctor Doom does that. I do feel like this is actually a relatively significant nerf, but at the same time, man, it's like we always had answers. Like I played so much Echo, Miss Marvel wasn't bothering me, but what bothered me, Cozy's been what's bothering me, Cozy, was that Miss Marvel was a 4/5 that gave potentially 415 stats across the board, and even if I tried to Enchantress it, we were just flat trading at 4/5, which kind of felt bad.
Yeah, for sure, man. I feel like with her too, it's crazy that when a card like this dips down, still really good, but if it dips down, to your point, Echo, Super Scroll, these cards that get hot for a second kind of go back down too. And I was like, man, I kind of like it. Opened the door up for less Cosmos. It opened the door for some different kind of tech cards that we've seen. So do I think she's still a great card? Yes. 2 cards are fine. It kind of slows down some of the control aspects, but we're getting cards coming out that I think they're kind of looking out for that in the future either way. Lastly, man, let's talk about Quake. We kind of talked about last Snapchat. She could be the best, at least top 3, top 5, 2-drop. And honestly, we can definitely say she could just fit in any deck. That's damn true. I don't know how much of the new Quake you played, but man, having that certainty on what you could switch around now is awesome. It's so cool, yeah.
It's an unbelievable card. It's we'll just say one of my absolute favorite in the game right now.
Yeah, 100%. I think Quake is just a stellar addition. And it's, man, I don't know if it's a 2-cost slot. For a while back in the first year Snap, it felt like the 3-cost slot was really fun. Those two just have so many unique ways to change up a game. And I think they're perfecting it because, how they've killed a lot of the area wide effects for 2-drops. I kind of like where we're at here. We're talking about cards on the rise. A couple cards that I have right up for you are just the good statted 2-cost drops, right? Like Medusa and Lizard. And we're seeing these cards again. Silk, obviously is a big winner with Kingpin. We're seeing these cards again. He played a lot more, right, Alex? Because those are the power cards, and then you have the ability cards now. And there was kind of a nice line between the two.
And there's often times where Lizard will also benefit decks that want initiative early, right? There's that factor as well. Often when you're playing Lizard, you're playing Enchantress as a tech piece as well to cancel out the negative effect. I still laugh at Lizard, by the way. Literally, I remember the note change for the -4 power. Oh, this is probably the least significant nerf we've ever made. It killed Lizard on the spot. Lizard died for a good while there, and I think we laughed about it then, and we laugh about it now. One card I want to bring up though as a riser and the 2 costs as well is I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a lot more Zabu. Zabu seems like it's making its way back into a whole lot of decks. And even you're seeing some Zabu in Loki as well, which is pretty interesting. I think there's some experimentation there, but you're just seeing as a nice, good value play to cheat stuff out early. I think a lot of people got their hands on Iron Lad on the week that it was available, and they're like, hey, hold on, Iron Lad on turn 3. That's pretty damn good, isn't it? And who allows that? Zabu allows that. Zabu allows a lot of fantastic synergistic plays with 4-cost cards, and I think we're seeing more of it.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, I don't know how long we're going on months now of saying this card's heating up. It's been heated up. It's hot. I mean, guys, Mobius at this point, like if you have an open text spot, if you have an open deck slot, you're gonna get the value out of him. Whether it's a location, but more importantly, just countering what's kind of hot at the moment. He doesn't counter some of the Thanos decks, but other than that, the guy really is such a good tech card. He's already hot. It's not even on the rise anymore. He's hot. He's been on fire. It's your chance to use them, and those that have been listening to Snapchat for a while, they have been. Definitely just a good card.
Yeah, there's a couple quick ones I want to point to here. Black Knight's been a huge rise over the last couple weeks, so it's worth noting Black Knight has been a major key component to discard, and it's been fun. I think the win rates and the cube rates have come down a little bit as people get a little more familiar with the play pattern and they know when they need to escape, but I do think that Black Knight's doing very well. I cannot believe that Lockjaw the season of Scar has brought Lockjaw all the way back. Lockjaw is literally everywhere. You're seeing Lockjaw Thanos. You're seeing Lockjaw all over the place in the meta. So Lockjaw is definitely a massive riser. And I got a sad note, Cozy. Well, maybe we'll end with this one here as we move to our fun decks. You know, they say that you can only really appreciate fun if you know what not fun is. That's right, not fun. That's the language I'm using here. Huge riser. It's Leech. Leech is finding its way back into Thanos shells now too. It's not even just She-Not shells. It's in Thanos. Why is Leech everywhere, Cozy? Why is it ruining all the fun?
The blob. That's it. It started. Okay, it started in the She-Not. Then it migrated like a disease over to the Darkhawk decks to help counter Blob, because you play Leech on 5. Blob doesn't get rid of your Darkhawk. And then everybody likes Darkhawk. So we just got a lot. We got a lot more of that, right? And now people are like, I'll throw him in Thanos. I'll throw him all over because he counters so many of the, the last plays. He's that safety valve. And to me, when Leech gets really popular, it means that the meta needs a little bit of a shakeup, a little bit, right? Like that typically, to me, at least it showcases that a tad bit. And I love it because Leech has been the same now for like going on a year almost of the card that he is. Let's transition with that, right? Let's talk about fun decks in a stale meta. So I'm saying a stale meta, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit. Right now, guys, high Evo Thanos, you're seeing these decks just to a ridiculous degree. And, for some players, it's getting a little bit of stale. We're seeing the same decks. Can we get some fun? Guys, remember, it's a card game. Have fun with it. The decks that I think are the ones that I've been playing, that I've been having a blast with, first and foremost, if you haven't seen, just made the Kingpin guide. We'll start there. Guys, Kingpin, absolute fun ass deck to play. You can see the cards. We've got Nightcrawler and Kraven. You have Jeff in there to all go off the Kraven as well. Polaris and Spider-Man can be used with the Kraven or for the Kingpin. And then clearly we've got my One Love Arrow, who is just awesome under Kingpin as well. Magneto's the perfect finisher. And then having Silk spiced in there for that constant buff through Kraven. We've got an extra flex spot in there that can be a tech card if you're choosing. Shang-Chi's there to counter the big decks. Really fun and competitive deck. Definitely give it a try if you haven't already. And most of these cards you probably should already have in your collection. I got a couple other ones, man, but what is just a fun deck you're having a good time with right now?
Yeah, so first of all, I thought your Mobster Move deck was a ton of fun. I gave it a shot. I was like, yeah, Cozy. Always brewing, always crafting. I gotta tell you, it was a lot of fun. And the one that I've been turning to very often right now is C3. C3's back. Its win rate's not fantastic. It's not bad. The win rate is kind of low, but its cube rate is very high. And the deck I'm talking about is as follows. You got Wasp, you got Bast, Jeff, Luke Cage, the new and improved Quake, Scarlet Witch, Sentinel, Cerebro Mystique, Magic, Iron Man, and my favorite of all of them, Valkyrie. And that is where the cubes come from, folks. It's that Valkyrie, that dirty Valkyrie that comes down, because people are going to have like Magnetos and Scars, all the greedy stuff. Hell, they even have blobs. And guess what happens? Valkyrie goes, hello. It just comes in and changes it all. And it's big sad for your opponent. C3 has been so fun. And it's one of the ones I turn to when I want to have a blast playing.
Dude, I had it ready to go. I was going to say C3 right now. Super just... It has so many cards going for it because you now have Quake right into the equation. I love the Bass Wasp play. Super fun. Like, just no one's expecting that free quick card to hit. And then, of course, you have that Wasp also help the Valkyrie lane. So, yeah, totally. And it's like at this point, there's just so many good 3-cost or 3 power cards. C3, And Cerebro is kind of like junk. It's a tough deck to play. I don't know if the stats will always reflect, right, exactly how it performs. But when you win big. Good point there. Listen, bud, we talked a lot about discard. I don't think Miek is going to work in Hella. We didn't touch on that. I think it's just kind of counterproductive of what you're doing. Could maybe a little bit. But Hella right now is a freaking blast, dude. Hella is actually doing okay. It's not too shabby. Right now, 80 to infinite gameplay ranked. We have 1,800 games. Pretty popular at the moment. Guys, it's killing. Now, it does have the Black Knight involved. It's not the Black Knight Sarah deck like you've seen, but it's your Lockjaw. We just talked about Lockjaw coming back. Hella Casino, as I used to like to call it, with the Black Cat in there. A lot of big cards. This is just, anytime you play in Hella, it's great. But when you have the Lockjaw involved too, you have like 2 different games of chance that, you know, is going to help you win big. And so definitely, I've been playing Hella a tad bit alongside Hercules, Move, and Kingpin.
See, the way it works for me is usually I play like Blade into the Lockjaw, and then it just pulls Hella out. Makes me a little sad, but it's okay. I mean, I get to bring back the one card I bladed. But for me, it's like the Hella gameplay has always been the traditional, just hide behind Invisible Woman and just pray, right? Like that's kind of the way I've always played Hella. And when I see like these Lockjaw Hella decks, I'm like, you know what? Yes, someone's embracing fun and throwing. It's like, you know what? Who needs cubes when you can have fun? And that, I think, is the purpose of this discussion, right, Cozy?
And it reminds me, I swear, Hella truly reminds me of the casino, right? Because when I launch up a Hella deck, right, kind of like a casino, you go up to a table, right? You roll the dice. If you're winning, right, you roll 5 dice, you're winning. You're like, I'm going to keep gambling. This is a great time. I'm winning, right? But if you throw those dice, you lose 4 times. You're like, I'm done. I'm going home. I kiss my kids. I tell my wife I love her. It's like Hella. Like, I'll get a Hella deck going, and I'll lose like 3, and I'm like, I'm done. Why did I even do this? Right? But then other times I'm like, I can't be stopped. She can't be stopped. I'm up 80 cubes. Like, it's a perfect definition of her.
The thing about Hella too is every time I'm against a Hella player, it's like, do they draw the Hella, yes or no? If they have, I lost. And, you know, if they don't, they should retreat. And then like you wait and they're like, oh, are they going to retreat? And then like everything's going red on the screen. You're like, are they going to retreat? And then you lock in your turn and then it's like, they retreat. It's like, oh, damn it. I knew they were going to retreat anyway. So like, I love the mind games that comes with Hella, but like it can be a very slow and arduous deck. That's why I think that you bring up the Lockjaw version is a lot of fun because it kind of just throws caution to the wind in the way it's played. And it's funny because my second deck I wanted to talk about was what I was calling Scary Knight. It's been actually some of the most fun I've had playing the Black Knight, and the deck is Black Knight, Blade, Zabu, Lockjaw, Lady Sif, Jubilee, Ghost Rider, Shang-Chi, my favorite of the bunch, Dr. Octopus, and then we have Scar, Magneto, and Infinite. Dr. Octopus is the star of this one here. Not because, first of all, it's going to throw games for you. Just get that out of the way right off the bat. But I don't know why. I love playing Doc Ock, especially in this super greedy meta where people have all these massive cards in their hand. They're holding on to Infinites and Gigantos and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. You're blobs. And I just pull them out like yoink. And they're just sitting there. And I'm like, hey, guess what? I have Zabo on the board. I can whatever I discarded before. And then I can also uppercut with Shang-Chi all your big chonky cards into oblivion. I just love it. I think Dr. Octopus has quietly in this meta been legit a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, Doc Ock is pulling all the cards on a location, but one of them is guaranteed to be Shang-Chi. So like, just once you get that out of your way, you know, you're good to go. Moral of this entire, topic is, man, there's always like good decks that are, meta competitive, gonna help you climb the best. And then you have the ones that are just like a good time. Right? And like, guys, just remember to have fun. Remember to have fun with Snap. That's the whole point of it. Dude, I gotta ask you been watching any NFL playoffs? Any football?
You know what? I've been trying to catch my Miami Dolphins whenever possible, but this week I have not had a chance to watch much. Cozy, what do you got for me, NFL?
Oh yeah, Dolphins, they're done. They're out of the playoffs. They had a rough go around. And Cowboy fans, if you're listening, oh, Alex, you're just finding out. Diehard fan here. Just finding out that the Dolphins are gone. Cowboys got the snot beaten out of them. Insanity. They have just the curse on curses. Can't believe it. And what we had the Chiefs win. Was happy for Patrick Mahomes. It was pretty good playoff games. The Lions won, man. The Lions played the Rams. Matt Stafford. It was a awesome game that I got to at least listen to a little bit. Yeah, man. I'm a big NFL fan. Definitely been fun with the playoffs. And yeah, who do you think is gonna win the Super Bowl?
Well, before that, I saw some picture. Did Patrick Mahomes' helmet blow up?
Yeah, dude, it cracked. So, okay, listen, Alex and I were just talking about this. We're gonna end the Snapchat on this. Like, I'm in San Diego, right? So I'm like out of touch with the weather. Like, I'm completely out of touch with everything. It's always perfect out of here. Maybe a little cold. But I saw the Buffalo weather. So they had to move the Buffalo game from Sunday to Monday. Okay. And my boy Alex lives an hour from Buffalo. I'm seeing pictures. And this looks like you have to ride a Tauntaun from Star Wars, like on Hoth. It looks like an absolute alien planet, dude. How is that fun? What is happening over there?
So basically, it's like minus 11 where I am right now, which is, I think, what, 12 Fahrenheit for you guys approximately? I don't know. Your guys' numbers makes no sense. You guys like metric system? No, we don't do that.
Yeah,
right?
I've got no clue on Celsius and Fahrenheit.
My wife and I went to get in the car, and the doors were just frozen shut, and we couldn't get in the car. So we had to use one of the other cars because, like, we literally could not open our doors because they were sealed frozen. That's how cold it was. Because wind chill was like negative 20 something Celsius.
Alrighty, well, there's a reason I don't live over on the East Coast because I enjoy my happiness. Good luck to everybody in the cold, and I hope your team wins or loses the playoffs. I don't know who they are. Anybody but, I guess the Ravens. Not a big fan. Who do you hate? Is there any teams you hate?
The Patriots.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, if you want to catch Alex's side of the Snapchat, you know, I'll just go the full finger. If you want to catch Alex's side of the Snapchat, you can do so. We're going to be talking about Hercules in review. We're also going to be talking about our favorite cards at every cost. Definitely might hear a little bit of arrow love in there. And of course, we have the Snapchat mailbag. I'm sweating on a power generator. Alex is filming at like 2 a.m. in the morning. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the streak staying alive. And as always, until the next Snapchat, happy snapping.